Jenny, thank you for being here today. Excited to chat with you. This is one of our WeHero learning series. You are a new guest on this. Really excited to have you. You obviously bring a different perspective than Ben and I, than from the nonprofits we speak with. And so, yeah, maybe just to start out, share a little bit about your background, where you focus, and a little bit about your story.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be part of it. I've seen your and Ben's videos, so it'll be nice to get to do one myself. So I've been obviously part of WeHero for a long time, so it's kind of been able to watch us grow since the very beginning, which has been really fun. And I've gotten to be involved in a lot of different areas. So right now, I would say like my number one focus is working with our current clients and really just ensuring that they reach their social impact goals, booking volunteer events for them, talking through their strategies, and just really supporting them in the best way that I can. And then also focusing on our internship programs. So that's both with existing clients as well as new clients that reach out to us for programs for their internships.
Cool. Yeah. Well, someone else who has been here for a long time, it's been awesome working with you and seeing the different roles you take. So I think you bring a great perspective to this conversation. And you mentioned kind of where we want to go, talk about interns. And I think as we've seen over the last few years, just requests around how do we engage interns has only increased. And I'd be curious from your perspective, why are companies focused so much on interns right now?
Yeah, I feel like, I've definitely watched the requests grow a lot over the past few years. And I think that companies are just investing more in their internship programs as a whole, because internships are such a great path for not only the students or the interns themselves, but also for companies. It's a way for them to really get someone who's going to be invested in that company and who they are and get to know each other before extending full-time positions. So it extends, their career and gives these interns a really great opportunity. But it's also really beneficial to the companies to have someone that they can really mentor from an early position that can grow with the company. And it's just, in terms of effectiveness and cost-wise, it's more beneficial for these companies to focus on bringing people in as interns and then progressing them through roles versus hiring someone externally for a position. So I think they're just focusing a lot more on it, which is great.
Yeah. No, it makes a ton of sense, right? I mean, you get to almost both sides get a test run to see if you like the company, you like the culture, and then if you are willing to invest in this individual. Hiring a full-time employee for companies is a big investment. And so it's really cool to be able to test that out. And it makes sense why companies are now using it. Would you say they're using it as like an advertising summer almost in a way?
Yeah, I would say they're like very much using it as like a funnel. And it's also kind of a way for companies to sell themselves to these individuals. Like, come be a part of this program. You get to experience what life is like at this company, do fun activities, but also have a really meaningful summer or fall or, semester program where you get to learn a lot, learn from people in an industry that you want to be in. So yeah, it's kind of like a little advertising section for these companies to be like, hey, this is who we are. And more than likely that individual is going to want to be a part of that if they can run their internship successfully.
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes sense. Obviously, the companies we work with want to build a culture around giving back. It makes sense that they're trying to show their interns that they really value that. Obviously, we're working in crazy times. We are both sitting in home offices right now. How have these HR managers changed, and how are people engaging employees in a virtual remote world, with COVID?
Yeah, I feel like it's really easy for people to feel distance. And I'll kind of just touch on like mostly as it relates to interns. It's easy for interns to feel distant from the role and distant from the company when they're doing this remotely. So I think it's been a struggle, absolutely, for companies to learn how to do that, effectively and in the same manner that they would if they were in person. And so that's why I feel like, personally, I think companies just have to focus so much more on engagement. Like, obviously, they have big goals for interns, they have project goals, they have daily tasks they need to do. But I think just along that same vein, just as important should be engagement. and really focusing on that and how do we engage our interns and really show them who we are as a company, what we believe in, really tie them back to our culture and our mission so that they love the company, and then also, the tasks and the projects and the roles. So I feel like engagement has to be their number one focus for interns when they think about integrating them into these programs remotely.
Yeah. So now I'll flip it back to you because it's easy for us in the sidelines. We are not running large intern programs. Yeah. So we just get to help them with the easy parts that we think are the easy parts and the fun parts. Let's say you were an HR director, your company was bringing in 50 interns. How would you structure it to maximize engagement? Just to, what goals would you even set, and how would you think about that? And just more broadly, how would you, prescribe to have the best summer possible?
Yeah. I feel like that's a very loaded question, but I love it because I feel like there's a lot that goes into that. But yeah, I feel like there's different pieces, and it kind of has to start from the very beginning. So when I think about if I were to try to run a successful remote internship right now, I would start by having a really well-defined role for these interns. So focusing on that initial job description and putting a lot of effort there actually to help them understand what they're coming in to do, what are their goals behind this, setting very clear goals for them that they can achieve and really work towards. It's kind of that first step. And then also training opportunities would be my second main focus. Giving them those opportunities to have professional development and learn and get these training opportunities in the same way that normal employees get. So if there are opportunities for, general employees to participate in training opportunities or sessions or courses, I think those interns should have the exact same opportunity, which leads to networking, which is another big piece of, having a successful internship remotely, is giving them those opportunities to still connect with other people in the company. And those, training opportunities could introduce them to other people in different areas and just giving them that view of the company as a whole so they can kind of understand the different dynamics in the different areas. And that's also going to help them see where they think they fit best. And if they're looking at a future career at this company, you want them to know the areas for growth and opportunity and network with other employees who can give them insight and advice and really get to do that together. So I feel like the training opportunity is obviously a huge part. And then engagement in terms of activities and fun. I think sometimes it's easy to forget about that and it's easy to get overwhelmed. So a lot of the companies that I've spoken to this year, they have said, okay, so last year was virtual and we chose not to do any volunteer opportunities. There was a lot going on. We couldn't figure out how to successfully run it. So we skipped it and we regret it and we wish we didn't skip it and we're not going to skip it again this year. So I think just making sure to make that giving back a priority, no matter what the situation brings, and finding partners who can help you do that. And I think all these companies are going through the same situations. They're all trying to figure out how to engage employees and interns remotely. So there's actually a wealth of information on engagement. So just utilizing your resources too, and leaning on people to support you where you need it.
Yeah. A few things stood out as you were kind of walking through the optimal way to engage. First of all, it's complicated. It's hard. I mean, there's so many different factors here that these people need to be thinking about as they're trying to plan the perfect structure.
Absolutely.
Is it the one thing that stood out to me is it's almost like you want to treat them like they're a regular employee and ingrain them with other employees, regardless of tenure and age, to cross-pollinate, to network, and to really get all the benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that sets them up for success. And ultimately, the goal is that we retain interns, they become full-time employees. So why not treat them as if they already are? Because that's what's going to give them the full experience of, okay, if I work here as a full-time employee, this is what it's going to be like. I think sometimes companies make mistakes there and they don't treat them like a full-time employee. And it can go one of two ways. They either don't treat them like a full-time employee and they're interns and they're lesser than, or they don't get the full experience. And that's a negative version. or they like overcompensate in the other direction and they give them all these fun activities and they do a lot with them and they kind of give this false expectation of what it's like to work at that company. So I think, finding that middle line of engaging them, getting them excited about the mission and the culture, but also treating them as if they're like anybody else is going to give them the best experience and set like the best expectations for them, really.
Yeah, it makes sense. And makes sense how companies, I mean, we saw this across the board just last year, interns, not interns, people being like, too much stuff going on. We're trying to pivot our business to being remote. We can't even think about this stuff right now.
Totally.
And now companies can't ignore it, right? I mean, you can argue about the future of work and whatever you want, but there's some component that this is the way of the future in some capacity. And so, do you think it's making it harder to retain interns, retain employees in general? And are people changing how the companies they want to work for based on this?
Honestly, I would say absolutely. I think that there is an expectation that companies have social missions and social goals. And if they don't, that can definitely turn people off from wanting to work there because people want, and I know like we always say this, but people want to work for companies that give back because they want to give back. Like people have missions and goals personally of things they want to accomplish and ways they want to volunteer and give back. And that's great. But when they find a company who has the same values and does the same activities and wants to give back as well, I mean, that's even better. And that makes people feel like they've found a place here, that aligns with who they are as people, not just what their career goals are. So I totally think that it's so important and that if people aren't doing that, they can lose people. And it is, retention is hard, especially in a remote place and in the virtual work world that we're all living in. Like that's, giving back and providing volunteer opportunities and just focusing on social goals in general is going to give them really what, they're looking for in terms of engagement.
Yeah. And even if you move past what WeHero does in volunteering, I think companies who are flexible and engage their employees across a variety of different ways in this remote world are way better than people who are just saying, we'll just wait till we get back to the office.
Exactly. Yeah. And it also shows interns and it shows employees that you're agile and you're going to go with the flow and you're going to figure it out. Like that's so important. Like you're going to get thrown this massive curveball and try to figure out how to do, all of your different activities and things as a company remotely. And if you're doing it and you're doing your best, I mean, that's what employees want is they just want to see, their companies caring about it and doing their best to really make this still as normal as we can make it.
Hopefully not normal forever, but I think companies need to be flexible on what their employees want.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So a few fun final questions for you. Favorite non-volunteering employee team event that you've ever done?
Oh, that's a really good question. I have to say, and this is actually not one that I've ever gotten to participate in, but it's one that my dad actually did for his company, and he is the head of HR. And so it has, been his role to really like engage his team and get people, remotely together. And they did like snack packs. And there was like a company that I think they used to deliver snack boxes. And then they did like ratings. So like, what was your favorite snack? And this person's favorite snack was this. And like, everyone kind of like rated. It was almost like wine tasting without the alcohol. So
that's
more
awesome.
corporate friendly. It was like snack tasting. And I think it was also kind of cool because it's an ongoing joke that like COVID, especially at the beginning, I snacked so much because I'm like, I'm home, I'm here, my pantry is right there. And I feel like everyone was in that position. So my dad kind of made like a joke off of it and did this whole like snack program. And I thought
that's
it was
awesome.
Cool. Yeah. And it gave them snacks because I think also like people would be in the office and they'd have snacks available for them there. And so it's still like a way to kind of bring that in and just, it wasn't even like a long-term thing, but it was just like a one-off box. And I think maybe he did it like a few different times. Cool. And it just sounded so fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have never heard of that. That's very cool.
I
All
know,
right.
it's so cool.
Next question. So we didn't talk about skills-based pro bono volunteering here at all. But
Yeah.
if you could spend one day a week working for any nonprofit, which nonprofit would be and why?
Oh, one day a week
Or you can
volunteering.
do 1 month with
Okay.
them, whatever it would be.
Hmm. Um, that's a great question. I feel like for me, it would probably be something with like the Boys and Girls Club, or so there's a nonprofit that I actually just got to talk with last week called Time Out Youth. And I don't know what it is about them. I feel so like connected to them as an organization. I just love talking to them and I love what they do. And they really focus on supporting LGBTQ youth, and whether they're transient youth, whether they just come from a lower income, they provide them with like services and summer camps and really fun things to do. And I mean, they're in North Carolina and I'm here. So it's not like I would be able to do something for them in person, but I would be able to like, at least support them in whatever ways that they need, whether that's actually getting to mentor kids, because I absolutely would love that. Or even just being part of their organization and helping them, maybe using my marketing skills or my sales skills. Like I have, those two main areas that I focus on at WeHero. I wonder if I could do that for them and just support them in a way like that, probably. So something
Awesome.
with youth and maybe something LGBTQ focused, probably.
Awesome. Yeah, love that. Well, any other final words of advice to HR leaders, program leaders who are figuring out what to do with their intern programs this upcoming summer, or any final words to all the listeners?
Yeah, I feel like I would just say maybe don't overthink it. I think a lot of people are like trying to make it this, big, scary, like to do, and it doesn't have to be. There are so many ways that you can engage your groups. And like I only barely touched the surface on like a few of those, but yeah, I think just have fun with it and show people that like obviously you care about them being engaged, and that's a focus for them. And that's great, but it doesn't have to be a hard task. And I think finding people who can support you, there are companies that, will support you in all the different areas that you're thinking of, in terms of engagement, and keep it fun, and creative. I think also just like think outside the box, because I think Zoom fatigue obviously is something very real for people, especially over a year in. And so I think just finding other ways to engage people. Maybe there's like games online you can play together and make contests and competitions and do fun things that maybe people haven't done before. So yeah, I think just keeping it fun, keeping it light, and then also obviously still remaining true to who you are as a company and what your mission is. And just because it might be really hard to do that remotely, it's definitely not impossible. And stick with what you want to accomplish and just do your best that you can. Everyone is just doing the best that they can. And I think employees and companies are all doing such a good job. So also just to everyone who might be listening and has kept up with their social impact goals and have, engaged their employees and been creative and done things, like so proud of all of the companies that have really had to shift and do things remotely, because it has not been easy, but it's been really fun to watch people shift and get really creative with things. So I think just keep it up.
Yeah, well, I love that positive message. And, as we've talked about on almost every one of these, it's all about connecting with your company's mission. I love ending on that note. And Jenny, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for helping all these companies figure out what to do with their interns and enabling just people to be successful. So appreciate that. And thank you very much for joining us, and hope to have you back on here soon.
Yeah, thanks so much, Andy. I'll talk to you soon.